I think by now everybody has seen the Bernie Sanders memes from him being at the inauguration. And it was the gift that just keeps on giving. And certainly one that I wasn't even waking up and expecting to get. My favorite of the memes, though, is a local one. And there is an article, unfortunately, about how the Kings lost to the Clippers, and the Kings lose their fourth straight and ninth loss in 11 games. And it's an actual article. So you scroll all the way through it, and then Tareen gets to the bottom, and he's like reading through the comments. And one of the comments is, "You snuck Bernie in there." And then if you scroll back up to the top, the little picture at the very start of the article, you see the Kings and the Clippers, and then Bernie is sitting on the bench with his arms in his mittens. And I was like, this one was brilliant because it wasn't too on the nose. It was just like in there if you caught it, and if not, you just read the article, and I loved it.
Oh, God. My favorite one of the memes was somebody tweeted the picture of Bernie with his little, mittens, and they said, "When Joe Biden asked me to reach out to Nazis."
Or seek unity with fascists.
That was good.
Yeah. My personal favorite was the one that Shannon did that is now posted to the Voices Instagram page, where Bernie is attending an outdoor Voices socially distant meetup.
Yeah, he's actually one of the hosts now. I forgot to announce that.
Right. 2021.
Welcome, Bernard.
Your new host.
Barnaby Saunders.
And he's going to say "stay warm" at the end.
Oh, that's so nice.
Oh, precious.
Stay warm.
My other favorite commentary actually came from you, Dave, when you said Bernie looks like he forgot his hat.
I don't think that was you.
Yeah, but I forgot my hat.
That was
hilarious.
He looked like he was just suffering through.
Yes.
I liked it that he had that mail.
Yeah.
And so it was like, there was that thing that was going around on Twitter where it was like, yeah, Bernie stopped by the inauguration, but this is not the only thing he's got on his plate for the day.
He's got other shit to take care of. Yeah, the one of my faves was like, Bernie woke up, put on his favorite jacket and mittens, looked at his to-do list. It said go to Joe's thing. He also had to go to the post office. Like, just like hella chill vibes for Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
So did you say, so before we started the show, did you say that jacket has now sold out?
Yes. So within minutes, people had already figured out where he got his mittens. And apparently it's like a school teacher who makes them, and they're like made out of like super sustainable materials.
Recycled sweaters.
Yeah. And so so people already knew that. I don't know if she sold out. I'm assuming she wasn't mass producing hers though, but his coat apparently sold out today. So people are feeling cold and decided they were going to use Bernard as their fashion icon. And so
this man has so much influence.
I mean, yeah, now that we're completely free of the fear that he might enact some sort of healthcare plan in this country that makes sense, we can just kind of look to him for our fashion tips.
We can look good while slowly dying. I'm looking
and paying a lot of money to do so.
There was a tweet there was a social media post by the person that was like, here are places you can get mittens that are similar to the ones I made for Bernie.
I love it. I mean, I like that there's some positive things from that day, because I felt nothing otherwise beyond laughing at those memes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough day. I mean, I wasn't actually going to watch, and then America gets me every time. And I was like, dang it, this Black woman is getting sworn in. Let me tune in and see what's happening. And then Amanda got up there and she said her point. I was like, sometimes America, you're still right. You get me sometimes, America.
That poet was phenomenal. I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you texted the group something about what was going on, and I was like, oh, I gotta turn it on, and I didn't enjoy
damn it,
Biden's
Flo.
speech. I didn't, but yeah, it is
It's a lot to take.
history. That actually, of course, is a wildly historic moment. So,
Did you see that Bill Clinton nodded off while Joe was giving his speech?
Of course. Like, I mean, it's cold. You're outside. You know, it's 30 minutes. You're just like,
Yeah,
what
everybody
should
in the
I?
crowd is like at least 100 years old. Like, of course they're gonna go to sleep.
yeah. What if that's how one of the
Feels like
senators
been there,
went?
done
That would have
that.
been something.
How
Well,
many of these
I-
things I got to sit through?
It took out one of our presidents, so why not?
That's true. It did. Which president was that?
I don't remember now, but he was only in office for like 100 days, maybe.
Yeah,
Not
and
even that long.
he caught a cold.
Yeah, he got sick because he gave like this 2.5 hour speech or whatever, and then like there you have it.
Verbosity. That's what took him out.
Talked
Yep.
himself to death.
I could
Speaking
Google
of-
it, but I just don't care.
Speaking
I'm
of-
like, I didn't remember his name. That was the most interesting thing about him.
I think all of us hosts are perhaps in danger of that someday. And in the spirit of not speaking too much, why don't we get started on the show?
I like the way you're
Let's
thinking.
do it.
Sounds tight.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Why, hello everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
And a very special guest, friend of the show, civil rights attorney Tifanei Ressl-Moyer. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are the only, I think, other than Katie, you're the only recurring guest we've had so far.
Oh.
Wow.
Am I right about that?
Okay.
Also,
Sounds
Katie's chief of
right.
staff.
Yes, Michelle's been on a couple
Michelle,
of times
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Oh, right,
That's
right.
true.
3 is a
So
good
you're the
number.
third one though, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Is this like SNL? Are
Thank
you all
you.
gonna get jackets and like do a ditty? Like, is that a thing?
It's tracksuits.
Okay.
Tracksuits.
Yes. What's up with that?
What up with
Love
that?
it.
Yeah.
What's up with that? What-
You were
up?
last on, Tifanei, during the summer, during the George Floyd protests, and we had an occupation of the National Guard here downtown. We had a curfew. We find ourselves in a somewhat similar moment, although for very different reasons. The National Guard has been here again. We've had a very oppressive police presence, really in direct response to the January 6th storming of the US Capitol. But today we're going to talk about something a little more local, and in effect, really, the police's response and activity, not towards the racist, white supremacist Proud Boys and the white supremacist Trump supporters, but actually against the people who are going out and trying to fight these fascists when our police force refuses to do anything about them. So can we begin with...
Let's go chronologically here, yeah?
Yeah, let's start chronologically this week. Tuesday before the city council meeting, I started seeing chatter, I think a lot of people did, of...
Also, notably, sorry to cut you off, Dave, notably the day before Inauguration Day as well. So this is the eve of the day that we are anticipating a bunch of drama from the Proud Boys. Yeah.
And this is also just before a city council hearing on police behavior
Exactly
and
that.
how they behave differently with white supremacist Proud Boys and the anti-fascists trying to go out there and pose a physical resistance to them. So Tuesday afternoon, we start hearing that police, I believe it's Sacramento Police, are going around to people they believe to be Antifa, to certain demonstrators in the region's homes, raiding their homes, and apparently arresting some of them. It eventually came out. Cap Radio reported that they arrested 3 people. Tiffany, can you talk to us a little bit about that? What happened?
Yeah, exactly. I will. Hours before they had a presentation before City Council to discuss their behavior, they raided and ransacked one Sacramento resident's home. They stopped another human while in a vehicle. They're driving down the street, searched them, arrested 2 of them, and then traveled all the way to Calistoga to arrest another human.
Wait, what?
Yes. And these people were identified, according to them, at previous counter protests. So either at the start of this year or in December, for incidents that were nowhere near the day where the police were approaching them to raid them, to arrest them, to search them. And so it calls into question for a lot of people why they did it on that day, just hours before the city council meeting where they had to answer to their behavior. I don't know that I can say too much more than that because some details are still being uncovered and folks are represented by an attorney here. But I will say that they destroyed one person's home and took a bunch of things that they didn't need to. They detained one person alleging that they had weapons in violation of their probation, and that quote unquote weapon was a cane. It was not a weapon.
A cane?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions for why they did that. There's a lot of questions for folks who don't feel like any illegal activity actually happened to justify those arrests.
I think of something like this, something that seems to me, if not retaliatory, it's also feels like a message from police. You know, it seems like a threat in some ways. I mean, where else in history have we seen this sort of behavior from law enforcement entities?
Right.
Like, what do we think when they treat people like this and act in ways that appear to me very much against Fourth Amendment rights, very much extrajudicial, just harassment?
Yeah, the timing on it is extremely suspect. Like I will be interested to hear what the narrative that they offer for that is, because that does, and I don't know, like I'm trying to watch my libel here, but it does feel to me like there's like an intimidation factor to this that's like super intentional. But obviously, you know, that's speculative.
Yeah, it does feel that way though. And, you know, when I look at this, I can't help but think back to months ago in Portland when Trump had federal law enforcement that had no identifying clothing driving around in unmarked vans and just spiriting people away from the streets. This is what this feels like in quote unquote liberal Sacramento, where we have everyone on our city council is allegedly a Democrat, where, you know, Angelique Ashby, council member of District 1, says that she believes we have the best police chief in all of the United States. When I look at this happening and this behavior from our cops, this feels like fascist behavior to me.
Yeah, it sounds really hard to justify. Like I said, I am really looking forward to like hearing what fucking Hahn has to say for like his department about this. I'm trying to think of like a reasonable.
I am not looking forward to that. Like, what lies will show up? But I do, just to point out that the reason why there was so much pressure for city council to ask the police to justify their behavior is because there was an insurrection at the nation's capital, right? Where law enforcement did nothing to prevent it. Maybe nothing is an exaggeration, but did very little. Were certainly ineffective.
Well, and in many cases appeared to be assisting the people who are storming the Capitol.
Opening gates, letting them through,
showing them around.
Correct.
Pointing their arm in the direction of the Capitol, as in, go on in this direction.
Exactly. And so now Sacramento City Police, who had very similar behavior at the state capitol, are now having to go before the council to explain why they too were acting like those law enforcement officers who were at the nation's capital. Yeah. And before then, they start harassing folks who are not white supremacists.
Right.
What are they, what's the message that they're trying to, what kind of evidence are they trying to pick up in order to justify their behavior? I think is really the question.
Yeah.
The best analogy for this, I just brought this up 2 episodes ago, but it's so perfect. I mean, this to me is just like a classic case of them like asking Hannah Montana where Miley Cyrus is. It's like,
yeah.
That question doesn't quite make sense.
Can we? Why don't we talk about what Chief Hahn has to say? My yoga buddy, and longtime friend.
Right.
Hours after these obvious displays of harassment, Chief Hahn goes to City Council and gives a presentation that I don't think you can call anything but Copaganda, discussing Sac PD's behavior with Proud Boys.
Well, could we back up real quick? Because this conversation is happening because recent councilwoman of District 4, Katie Valenzuela, had made it a point to bring police conduct, police conduct from the incidents. Meeting. Right. She's been pushing for this for a while now, and finally this meeting was. And
by a while we mean like 4 weeks, because that's
right.
How long as she's been on the job.
Right. But that's why this was happening. Yes. Which I feel like is worth mentioning.
It is, yeah. And one thing Flo said Tuesday night, which we will outline very well, why, was protect Katie Valenzuela at all costs. And we will get into that. Yes. But she was just remarkable. Chief Hahn shows up to give his presentation. Who wants to give a rundown of what that was about?
Can we just acknowledge that he quoted Malcolm X?
Oh my God.
Please. And in my private group chat, I text a bunch of people and I was like, you keep Brother Malcolm's name out your mouth. I was like, how dare you? It makes me so angry when people in establishments that these people would never have engaged with like this, then turn around and act like they are embodying the spirit of them.
Right.
Do me a favor. If you are an elected official, don't quote revolutionaries. Because the words of the revolution, you're only able to embody them if you leave them in the mouths of the people who are actually pushing you for more. But the moment you cross over into that leadership position, you should no longer be doing that. It's not appropriate. Like, and I don't mean that because you're not on our side. I mean that because they are the words of the people who are outside to push the establishments. You need to listen to them, but you don't need to be the utterer of them.
Especially when it's the cops talking about somebody like Malcolm X or Dr. King, like they every year on Martin Luther King Day, the cops have to tweet something about like, oh, today we honor the memory of Dr. King. He's like, what memory are you talking about? The one where you turned a fire hose on this guy and like everyone who is marching with him? Is that the fucking memory that you're looking back on and honoring? Because that's your fucking participation in this guy's legacy. What are you talking about?
From a Birmingham jail, how do you think he got there? Like, I don't want to hear from you on this day.
Particularly galling is when the FBI remembers Martin Luther King. It's like, I hope you're saying sorry. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was gonna save the editor, the bleep. I was gonna make it for the YouTube fans only.
Oh,
see?
there's no way to save that.
Sometimes I didn't even. Didn't even register that I swore.
Now you know how I feel every time I open my mouth.
Yeah, that's just a part of.
I really punctuated that one too. Okay.
So I did not. I joined the council meeting. I watched the beginning because I was interested in items 1 and 2. And while I was interested in agenda item 16, I fell asleep during the earlier portion of the meeting. So when Flo texted and was like, "Are you watching this shit?" Then I was like, "Oh, dang. Like, I forgot that I was going to watch this." And also it's like 7 hours later and it's still going. So I missed Hahn's opening bullshit.
So who wants to give a rundown on that?
Yeah, so if we can run that down, that'd be dope.
You know, I have more to comment on the deputy chief's presentation than Chief Hahn's opening. I do feel very similar to what you articulated, Flo, which is that if there's ever an indication that they will put a Black human in positions like this in order to justify their behavior, using them as a pawn, that is exactly how it felt. And it was incredibly infuriating to listen to him kind of relish in that position. He made statements renouncing white supremacy, and in the same breath compared Proud Boys, other white supremacist groups with Antifa, make no distinction, zero nuance in exactly what was going on outside, what's going on in the streets, just broad strokes, putting people who were fighting for the rights, for the safety of Black people in the same category with white supremacists. And it was very, very, very hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Shannon, the only other thing I would say to that, and I was like, well, did he did renounce white supremacy as it relates to the recent protests, but he kept saying root and cause throughout the entire preamble of his presentation, where he was describing in the type of, detail that you would want someone to, America's sordid past. But the problem is he kept saying, the root and the cause, and was never able to name white supremacy that was built out of capitalism as that root and that cause. And so that was what was really challenging to me, was when we describe white supremacy as individual people and then we other them, and we stereotype them, and then it doesn't allow us to see the white supremacy that, actual friend of the show, Jane Manty, was talking about earlier. She was like, white supremacy also comes well-read and well-educated and matching its subjects and its verbs and with a suit and tie on. And so this, stereotype of these, rural sort of hick-like folks who are your white supremacy makes it so you overlook the white supremacy that is better dressed, and often in that case better dressed, and it also comes in the form of institutions and policies. And so it's really easy to humanize this and to other a certain group of people and make them the face of the white supremacy, so we don't have to deal with the rest of what's actually happened when it comes to white supremacy. So that was my big qualm with his entire presentation, was that it was saying two very disparate things at the same time and showing great bravery when it came to the one that everybody can see, but none when it came to the one that is often most violent and most harmful to our lives.
He certainly didn't acknowledge the white supremacy in his institution, in SAC PD.
Correct.
And when Councilmember Ashby goes to the plate for him and says, I certainly don't think this Black man felt like he knew he would be coming out here today having to denounce white supremacy. Like this is what, like, it's precisely what Flo just said, right? Like that I don't know what to say.
The entire
can we talk for a moment about that, though, about the way that Angelique Ashby then steps in to take credit for it. I mean, because she basically said, "I made you, boy." Not quite in those words, but it was like, I've known him. I advocated for him to be here. Don't step in as Miss Ann and remind us who runs him, right? Like, if I was Chief Hahn, I'd have been infuriated by that comment. Yeah. It was totally unnecessary, totally off topic, and works in that very same tradition of, let me remind you where your bread is buttered.
It was really gross, tokenizing, and exhibited this like really disgusting like ownership over this person. And there also was this like exceptionalism that she was lifting up in that moment, like, which I think is always dangerous, especially when we are talking about people of color, because the reality is that like then you start to just like pump this person up instead of recognizing that like people of color in general are capable of great things, right? And let's also like, so let's just not do that. I mean, this doesn't have to be a lesson in anti-racism, but except for Angelique Ashby, it does, because her comments were really dangerous and gross and disappointing. So I don't know. I hope she's got some constituents out there who can call her on it.
In District 1?
I mean, probably not.
Hopefully some.
Can I just say one thing? To be fair to Chief Hahn, he is head of an institution that was designed to protect racial capitalism and white supremacy. There is no statement that he could have made to be accurate. Like, I just want to be real about that. We can't. Yeah, that's what he's done with his entire career, that I understand.
That's what I was going to say earlier, is like the entire institution of policing is fundamentally racist and built on white supremacy. Like, you can't. Yeah, like what's he gonna say about that? Like, there's nothing that he's gonna come to a city council meeting and fucking say about that.
Yeah,
I'm doing my best. Look, I mean, the fact that he even apologized before actually saying I'm denouncing white supremacy is like, it wasn't an apology, but it was sort of like I can't believe I have to say this, but I have to, and both like this whole lead up to it. And I was like, because you're not talking to us who are watching this, you're talking to your employees. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get ahead of what your own police union is going to say about you.
Yeah. Right. We need to move on a bit for the sake of time. So after Hahn's comments, then who is it that worked for him that gave the video presentation?
Deputy Chief Kathy Lester.
Yes. And this was a presentation that was it was supposed to be about.
I'm sorry. I'm just remembering it, and I can't think about it without laughing. It was outrageous.
I rewatched it before in prep, and I was like, "This is so silly. This is."
It's
basically
so bad.
She was tasked to give a presentation on, the community concerns over different treatment between Proud Boys and the anti-fascists by Sac PD. And it really ended up being almost entirely on how terrible the anti-fascists are. Like, this is the Sac PD saying that like they are horrible. And then they had like a few pictures here and there of like, this is what Proud Boys look like. And like nothing of their behavior, even their violent behavior.
I disagree. I think they showed videos of Proud Boys being quite violent and them doing nothing. And I was
okay.
like, you are providing evidence of our point. I don't, like, is everybody else seeing this? The people with PV on their shirt just yelling and taunting people with no police intervention. And while the counter protesters that the police are identifying as Antifa were not even in the shot.
Right.
Well, I think the goal of that presentation was to create, was to build up this, what they believe to be true, which is that Antifa and Proud Boys are the same, right? Like, that's the message.
They know it's not true. They are building. They know that they are building a
100%.
false narrative. They are aware of exactly what they need.
But they need
Yeah.
dumbasses to believe that in order to continue to build themselves up. Like, they know it's total bullshit, but they also know that there's a bunch of dumb fucks around who are going to watch that tape and they're going to be like, oh shit, I read this thing about Antifa being, you know, all about anti-racism and protecting the community, but they look like a bunch of bullies to me. So like, if that, like, that's their goal, like, to us, obviously, when we're watching it, we're like, this is a bunch of bullshit. But I had a friend in a conversation later who was like, Antifa is dangerous. And I was just like, and I can't deal with, like, so the cops won you over. Dope.
Yeah. And so they keep stressing that they're both violent, and you know, both of these groups are violent. We don't condone violence.
Well, what they're doing is they're framing them like the cops framed like street gangs back in the early 90s, right? So they're making it sound like it's like some Reds versus Blues kind of shit when like the Proud Boys and Antifa get together, and that's like easily disprovable. It's an objectively stupid way to frame this conflict, but you know, I mean, they're cops, so they're gonna lie. Yep. What do you got?
We've said it before. Antifa wouldn't even be out there if it weren't for the fascist Proud Boys. Like they don't go out there just willy-nilly.
So I don't think this is by mistake. I just want to make, you know, like my conspiracy theory or whatever it is. Like, I think that there is an intentional painting of Antifa as part of the group so that people don't pay as much attention, and so that people, like some on our dais, so I'm sure we'll talk about, will conflate the two and say everybody is just bad. I think that's strategically intentional, because if you actually start to pay attention to that, there are these two groups that have fundamental differences in terms of their philosophies, then you're likely to also give airtime to the anti-fascist one, and that goes against the capitalism and, you know, the oligarchy that's in power. Like, so there is an intention in how that's framed.
Yeah,
that's not a slip of the tongue where everybody or people not doing their homework. That's intentional framing of conflating the two, and then later coming back and saying, actually, they're not quite the same.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right, because policing is not designed for safety. It's designed to preserve the status quo.
Yeah,
right.
To preserve property, and you know, so
that video is like 20 minutes long or something. Yeah, it's like it's so long.
And then we move on to the public comments. And during the Copaganda, I was like super concerned, like, oh my God, what a horrible narrative they're presenting here. Like, I hope people get a chance to like really push back on this. And the public comments, of which Flo and Tiffany were a part, were just phenomenal. I was like walking my dog and listening, which is part of why I think I got the presentation part wrong, Tiffany, because I was listening and not viewing. But just absolutely moving public comments that pushed back so hard and reminded everybody what people fighting for something righteous over the summer dealt with, the violence that they endured by law enforcement, by SAC PD. It was just incredible.
Yeah, I feel like several of the callers may be listening to this, and if that is true, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure to listen to you dress down our mayor and city council. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
I
but I
agree.
think it just in the same way that like we have noted before, Antifa going out and taking the streets to get our community back from the violence and racist bullshit of the Proud Boys. Like the public comment it's a direct way for people in our community to let electeds know that they see all of the injustice and all of this, like the systemic racism that exists in our community. And it felt, I don't know, just like it was a nice I definitely felt my blood pressure drop significantly after watching that horrible presentation, as I was listening to people who are like-minded and who just really like didn't hold back. So yeah, echoing that for sure. And that was, at that point we're talking about hours and hours into the meeting and hours
Right.
into listening, watching this video where Deputy Chief Lester like just continued to point out bullshit, like, and folks really stuck around. I don't know, that's tight.
Not only that, but we are forgetting a thing where after this bullshit Copaganda piece that everybody has to sit through, the feed goes down. They experience technical difficulties, and we have nothing for a good like 5 or 10 minutes, as I recall, which is definitely an accident. like was for sure unintentional. I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was weird.
The timing
it was that moment where it was
very
like,
strange.
I felt like Skylar, I'm glad you brought it up, because in that moment, the first thing I thought was the cops are getting the last word.
Yeah.
And of course they are. And of course they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just the comments were incredible. Again, Flo and Tiffany were just phenomenal. Two people I really loved hearing were Nikki, who's been fighting injustices against homeless folks for forever, was fantastic. And then our friend Ryan, who was formerly with the SAC, what was it, the religious coalition?
Area Congregations Together.
Yeah, and Ryan actually, alongside Flo and a lot of our other friends, was a part of a demonstration after Anne-Marie Schubert let the cops that killed Stefan Clark go. This march through the Fab 40s where SAC PD was astoundingly violent. I was there. I saw Flo get bashed with bicycles. I saw so much police violence against a peaceful demonstration. Ryan was there. They illegally kettled the demonstrators who didn't get out in time and basically dislocated Ryan's shoulder. And so,
real quick, Dave, just for people who might not know, kettling is when they surround protesters so they can't leave and then issue a dispersal order that now nobody can follow and then arrest people for refusal to disperse.
Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, he gave a fantastic comment, also demanding everybody on that day as to denounce white supremacy. So can we move on to that? Because
quick, I wanted one more honorable mention. I just want to shout out every time I can to my man Robert Copland, who is absolutely the Bruce Lee
Love
of
him.
city council public comment. Every time he kills.
Robert, you're amazing.
Amazing. Okay, that's all.
So public comment.
Can I say one more thing? Actually?
Yes, go.
So the public comment, I just want to shout out organizing for that. Because just like you guys said, I was so worried the police were going to have the last word. And often they do, right? City council, the media, the courts, they all take the police's word for it, despite the very, very long history of them lying about basic things to criminalize people. And so a lot of people are just like, what? I'm not going to show up to talk about this. Like, nothing's going to happen. The amount of people who come to me who are like, I've been injured by the police, but I'm not going to file something. Nothing's going to happen.
Right.
You know, and so the group of people who got together and was like, no, we are going to fight hard against this narrative and put a lot of hours after they announced the hearing was going to happen. We cannot undervalue the level of like how much we need to stick together and fight and push against the narrative, because it is dangerous. It is very dangerous to let the police run with their narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just people delivered. You're totally right. It was just so moving. We move on then from the public comments to city council members speaking, and one of the first council member to speak after the mayor was Katie Valenzuela, council member of District 4. She is a young, leftist council member who is very much in tune with the community concerns with police. And she, in her own words, went rogue and showed a 15-minute clip from an independent news outlet. Most of the footage was from them. It's called Black Zebra. We've spoken about them a lot. We absolutely adore Black Zebra at Voices. They go out consistently. They put their bodies on the line. They are young people of color that are just absolutely incredible. And they get footage and they capture moments that nobody else will. I've seen people with Black Zebra get shot with rubber bullets by SAC PD. They're just phenomenal. So Katie shows 15 minutes of footage of all the time SAC PD was violent themselves against people.
Right. And a bunch of it is footage from the George Floyd protests of last summer, which were missing from the cop version of this, which is just all the cops being real cool and normal. So thanks to Katie going rogue, we are treated to a more accurate picture of what police violence looks like in Sacramento, which is huge lines of cops shooting less than lethal projectiles indiscriminately into crowds of people who are running away, gassing people who are trying to leave a scene, and just kind of all around brutalizing people, which is, I mean, I have to imagine, right, that everybody in city council has seen these. Do you think there's anybody who like has not seen this kind of footage or is like unaware that this is how the cops handle this thing in their town?
I think we saw them. Excuse me. We saw them try to cut the video off after 1 minute, which I think indicates the level of willingness they are to look at some of that footage. And so I don't think it's out of the question that they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I'm with Tiffany on this one. I think that there's a reluctance to see. I think there are a lot of people who are believing the police narrative, which is why I made it a point to, take a line that Dave uses all the time and say, like, the police are stakeholders, they're not authorities. And we need to make sure that we remember that and that we seek other opinions, because if we allow them to weave the narrative, they are an actor in some of this. And so they have an incentive to not tell the truth. And so, you know, or to even slant the narrative to their perspective. And it's worth hearing from how other people perceived it and and not to assume that they, you know, that the story that they're telling is the one that should be automatically believed. And so I do think that there is a chance that people haven't seen it. And I think also it's damning. And so if you're that, and this is why I don't want to belabor this point, but this is why I was saying, like, I don't want our establishment folks quoting revolutionaries, because it's damning. And part of your job when you take an oath to protect the Constitution is also that, yes, you still hold those values and they're important to you and nothing against that. But there also is a duty, and that many people are going to take quite seriously, that you run this department, you have the ability to make decisions for them. And so there is also what amounts to, you know, a sort of self-preservation mechanism, right? What is the legal liability? What is all of that? Which is why it is so incredibly impressive when someone like Katie does stand up to do it, because you're doing it at the risk of what liability it's going to open you up to, as well as this institution. Right. And so there is a reluctance to have it on the record. Like, you just aired into the public record that we know, all 9 of us now know about this thing. And so does anybody who wants to go back and look at this video. That is a problem. If anything on there is a problem, that's a problem, right? So of course there's pushback. Right. That's why there's closed session.
When Katie before she showed the video, I think she did something that I respect so much and that is not seen from members of the council very often, if ever, which is to say, her quote was, "You don't have to agree, and this doesn't have to be your experience, but any questions regarding activities of law enforcement should be taken seriously in the interest of transparency and accountability." And there, I think, lies that's such a big moment for people to feel seen and heard and supported by their council person, right? Like, this person is dedicated to doing the hard work that is calling out injustice by an entity that is believed by many to be a protector of the people, right? When actually we know who and what they protect. And for her to, I think it also, like what Tiffany was saying, it goes back into that like organizing mind, which is, she very intentionally said that you do not have to agree, but we have people in our community who do not feel safe. And as people who are sworn into this office, we have said that we are going to try to keep people safe. Yep. I just think that it's such an important thing. And it goes back to that, like, in doing the right thing, which was asking for accountability and upholding transparency, she becomes an enemy of a lot of people. And she will not have an easy time sitting up on that dais. And she hasn't, even in her short time there. So just to kind of bring that back around, I think I don't want us to forget to have that conversation around making sure that we protect Katie. And part of that protection, if you are not in District 4, in my opinion, is writing to your council person and letting them know that Katie is a model leader for a council person in the city of Sacramento. And we are begging of our council people to support her, to listen to her, and to model their leadership after her. We have to get behind her after what she did for this community on Tuesday. And that can't be said loud enough, and it can't be repeated enough. Yeah. That's
I mean, like, and I think just to like add to that, one of the things that like, so she comes on after a whole evening of people equating white supremacists with anti-fascist counter-protesters as being like two sides of the same coin or two equal entities here. This is her quote on that. We have groups that are known white supremacy groups whose induction includes things like committing a hate crime, said Valenzuela, who represents the Central City. That is different from a group of people coming out into the street because they feel like they are trying to defend unhoused people and their neighbors and community. You may not agree with their tactics, and that's up to each person's decision. I'm not out there. That's not my way, but that's not for me to criticize.
Yep.
Which is like,
yep.
I don't know if I've ever
heard.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say anything that brave in a city council meeting ever, and I've watched a few of them.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to come on the show tonight and just stand super hard for Katie and embarrass myself. I feel like every time she comes up on the show, I like kind of lose track of what I'm doing and then come back to what I'm saying like 5 minutes later, and I'm just like standing super hard for Katie. And
I mean, I think the reality is that Sacramento has experienced for years and years and years, and particularly after the uprising of the summer, just these extreme moments of like people being silenced, people being gaslit, people experiencing violence that is city fucking sanctioned, and there is something that really does feel like there is a bit of a weight, like there is it's something like I like to think about like what it was like for me to like go to my abuela's house and like seeing her and how fun that was. Like I feel this like weightlessness of like smelling tortillas and like tamales and all this food that's delicious, and there's something about it that feels like home to me. And when you have somebody that stands up for you and for your community, I suddenly am taken back to that safe space of being in, like being surrounded by the smells of Mexican food and loved with no abandon. Like for a moment, Katie and her leadership affords this community a space to feel safe. Because if nothing else, you know that you have an ally who is willing to fight for you and who is willing to be so vulnerable that they are now going to be targeted with an extreme amount of hate, I suspect, and potential violence.
And not just against conservative city residents, but also she will be targeted by SAC PD.
Yes,
totally.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, there's a
Blitzen.
Yeah, she will definitely be on a lot of people's lists, and they were already, gunning for her, but now they've got one in the chamber, so to speak. Like they're like, look, she's come for us, and she's not. It wasn't just a campaign promise. She's really coming out and exposing things, and this could get harmful for us. And that's why I'm like, we have to protect Katie, and protecting her means all the things that have been said. It also means like backing her up when she's going to bat for us. And it means, it means from the perspective of, political cover, like showing up with the mandate for the things that we really want, right? Like, I think sometimes when you get a good champion in, there's a tendency, and I know we've talked about this on the show before, even at the national level, in terms of like, are people going to be lulled back to sleep now that they feel like, oh, my party is back in, or, somebody who's not Trump is now, president. And it's like, if you actually want those people to be successful, you don't ease up when the wind is up. Like that's the time to go, right? And that's the time to push. And so I don't want us to ease up or say, Katie's got it, I don't have to do this. Like that's all the more reason why she needs the collective support of the community.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
No.
Can we talk about the other city council members' responses while Katie was playing the video?
About how pretty much everybody wanted to stop this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Like I actually have to say I respect that the mayor let it go and said no. I think we have to do this. Like I actually respect that
that was
because
impressive. Yeah.
Honestly, he had
was
another
the
good
only
moment that night too.
Yes,
Yes.
he did. He did.
He did. Yeah.
Because he was the only one. They were up there. They were grumpy. You know, Jay didn't want to watch. Rick Jennings didn't want to watch.
Harris
You
didn't
know,
wanna watch.
and they weren't on mute, so we heard their entire commentary.
Right.
You know, Jeff Harris wanted to stop. He got 10 minutes in and was like, "We really need to stop this." And it's just like, no, like we need to see this.
Yeah, we watched the cop version.
Right.
Let's watch the other version.
Right. And stop asking for
The
context.
PSA at the end. Did we mention the PSA at the end where Chief Hahn talked about the first responders and how we're in a difficult time? And I was like, who? I think it might have been Kian who said, how much should we spend on that promotional video that we saw in here in the middle of this presentation? Like, yeah. So we listened to all that, and then they were still upset that there was going to be a 15 to 20 minute video played to show exactly, and it was so stark how different that was, right? Like how, you know, we had seen everything that was happening, and then you see people who were like so far away from each other, but you saw people kind of fighting and other things happening, and you see people far away and just getting rubber bullets shot at them or are running for their lives. Like, of course they wanted to stop it. And then, you know, and of course they were not happy with anything that was happening on that dais.
One of the moments that I had, speaking of other city council members, because after the video is over, right, we all kind of, then people kind of weigh in one by one. And just to like preface like my experience with this a little bit, I didn't really know that I'm not in District 2 and wasn't really following that race very closely. And I knew like there was like a little bit of controversy here and there, but honestly, like I didn't read that far into it and didn't draw any conclusions because I was like, I don't know anything about it. I'll wait and let this dude, what is it, Laloe? Council member Laloe, kind of like, you know, I'll see what he has to say and see how it goes. Because, you know, we got three of them. So this guy comes in at the same time as we have Katie and Mai, who are like legitimate friends of the show. I already know that I'm all behind everything that they've got going on. And there's another guy, and I'm like, all right, let's see what this guy has to say for himself. So this guy comes out and immediately treats the response. He's like, it was like he and Angelique are like having a competition, like, you know, like a hot dog eating contest, but for police boots, right? Just trying to like gobble up as much police boot as they possibly can in like the 5-minute time allotment that they have to do this. This fucking guy comes out like fucking, I condemn white supremacy, of course, but also anti-fascists are the same as fascists, and our cops are really great. I think they have a really hard job. I wish people weren't so mean to them. I was just well, I've seen all I need to see. Thanks, man.
He was unequivocal. He was unequivocal about
what a fucking dickhead. Fuck this guy.
He kept saying they are the same. They are equally as bad. The fascists and the people against fascism are equally as bad. That's what he was
saying.
Well, he said he did the whole thing, and minutes later, how many I don't fucking know, because that meeting went on forever. He comes back and says, you know, Mayor, I'm so sorry if I was rude. It's late. We've been here for a while. And Daryl's like, no, you don't have to worry. Everything's we're cool, dude. Like, don't even worry about it. At which point, another, somebody else says something, and Steinberg's staffer, I'm sure, texted him and was like, bro, that guy just said that the anti-fascists and the fascists are the same. And remember, we condemned white supremacy earlier today. So we got to stay in line with our messaging. And so Steinberg is looking at his phone and he goes, oh, actually, Sean, I believe is his first name.
I think this is the most important part of the meeting, by the way.
He says, I see what you did. You said that anti-fascists and the Proud Boys are the same, and I just want to say they're not the same. that's not, I don't believe that they're not the same. So Councilman Laloe says, well, no, of course not. But what I mean is, these are two groups who prevent people from enjoying downtown, and in that way,
I have the quote right here. Can I? May I?
Oh, do you?
Yeah. I don't think I'd look at the group Antifa as a counter-protester organization. They're equally in the same scale as the Proud Boys. Bottom line of it is, either group creates a danger for the residents, for the people that want to enjoy our city. Both organizations are despicable.
Yep.
Who, like, okay, the residents, the people that want to enjoy the city, who does this guy think is blocking up and getting in the fucking street?
Right.
I don't know. I like, this is such a whack take on so many levels that I don't even know where to start with this guy.
I think it's also like this particular like situation with that councilman is such a reminder that these elected officials do not have it seeped within their bones to live into an anti-racist framework, right? Like their comms team, their people have to remind them of the appropriate language to use. I mean, they say things such as, I mean, Ashby was one of the people who did this. I denounce white supremacy. And it's like,
but I also love cops.
I just want to like as a reminder, you standing up and saying I denounce white supremacy and then supporting the cops, it doesn't really match up.
That's like being like, I denounce carbohydrates and then horking down a whole loaf of sourdough.
Did Sean say he denounces white supremacy? Because I don't remember him being one of the ones who said it.
I think he did. I think he started it off. Yeah, he's quoted in the B as saying he is 100% against white supremacy.
Okay, because I didn't remember him saying that on the dais. So okay, maybe I was just so taken by what he said later.
Can I give Sean some credit where it's due?
Yes, please do.
I'm very impressed that he can represent his district so well all the way from Granite Bay.
Yeah. That's another fun fact about this guy. Yeah. He doesn't even live in his district.
This guy does not.
He doesn't live in the city limits.
Look at his swearing in ceremony. He does not. He definitely lives in his home in Granite Bay. Journalist friends, let's work together on this. There's no question in my mind. Where he is living right now. Sean, also, baby, there's a lot more about you out there. There's a lot of active things going on right now, and now you are on the left's radar, and I look forward to sharing more on this.
Maybe that's why he's like so quick to mow down on all these boots, is because he's worried that if he doesn't do it, like some shit will come up about some of these. What I don't know. I gotta read up on more of this.
Some bureau might be asking some questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a bureau.
They might be investigating something. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, and not just on the local or state level, on a different level. This bureau. But yeah, we'll get into more in that on a future episode. So looking forward to that, Sean.
Loving to think about it.
Unsurprisingly, Mai Vang was right on the ball with her comments, as far as I can recall. Does anybody? I don't clearly recall specifically what she said, but I remember being like, all right, hell yeah, go Mai.
Yeah, she pretty much backed Katie up and said, we clearly have a problem and we need to identify it, and we need to take some action on this as a council, and we can't ignore it, which is exactly what I would have expected Mai to say. So, and again, that it's good that Katie's not at least up there alone.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, any other thoughts on this meeting? There was, at the end of it, of course, there were some public comments of items not on the agenda, and some just real amazing folks who had commented on this item just stuck around to really drive it home again. It's just a beautiful outpouring of intent again, once more from the community.
But it's different this time, you know, because we've seen this happen a million times, but this time these people actually have representation that gives a shit about them in city council. I've been watching this happen for years with Hanson as the council member for District 4, and people are just talking to a wall, you know, people who were willing to call in and make comments, and they're not like, that's not the case anymore. And I think that's to what Shannon was saying earlier about feeling this like feeling of like familiarity or like I guess hope, I guess is a way that I would put it. But it's just like, you know, like, dude, that's that's people who are not used to being represented in their local governments getting a taste of what representation feels like, and it tastes fucking good.
It tastes good.
What I will say, the very end of that, it was like the worst best decision I ever made was to stay up for the entire fucking thing. And I'm so glad that I stayed for those last 6 public comments, because the one that said, if you all think that sitting up there and what was it, like saying no to white supremacy or whatever is enough, like that is comical, and that just like over and over it like that person just dug in the dagger, and I just loved it, because by that point we also have to remember that the most of the council was laughing about having to, they were like, really, mayor, like you're gonna let these last 6 people talk? And the mayor's like, yeah, this is a public meeting, like they've been waiting.
Well, because they're entering like hour 12 of this meeting or something at this point, right? Which I would feel bad for you for if you were making like if you were like a minimum wage employee who didn't have a say in what their job was, but you ran for an elected position and won, and so this is what you knew that
12-hour meetings were part of the deal.
I mean, also to consider that this was a completely inappropriate forum to address the level of violence and trauma from the police. So, you know, people had to call. They didn't start till 45 minutes late? I don't know how long, but quite a bit later. Then you had to wait. I was on hold for 4 hours. And I know there were multiple people who were on the line who had been attacked, brutalized by the police. Can you imagine sitting on the phone for 6 hours to detail your own trauma, only to have some of your representatives saying, I don't believe you? It is an incredibly traumatic experience. And if they didn't want to stay till midnight to have to hear about it, they should have had a forum that was much more appropriate, trauma-informed.
Right.
Which we should mention, Katie asked for a different forum for this conversation.
Right. It was told no.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is what the council opted for.
Can we talk about that? What's happening next?
Yes, please. Can you lead us in?
Yes. I mean, I think it's really important. What the mayor essentially laid out with nudging from Valenzuela and others was that the Public Safety and Accountability Board, is it a board position?
Oh, the Office of Public Safety and Accountability, Letitia Watson.
Yes. Thank you. Is going to do their own report of what happened, watched all the videos. And then the Community Police Review Commission is also going to do their own list of recommendations that need to happen and have a community forum. And that community forum can look a lot different than what's going to happen, what happened on Tuesday. So I think it's going to be really important for people to stay engaged, and these next kind of 2 parallel processes that are going to happen, because that's where what we want to see happen, that's an opportunity to put a lot of pressure there. I just wanted to make sure folks knew about that.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess that's all on the meeting then, and we do have a call to action now, so thank you for that. Can we talk about what happened the next day, what happened Wednesday of this week, the day of the inauguration here in Sacramento? Obviously, the Proud Boys and the alt-right don't show up because who knows why. I think, first of all, there was just an oppressive show of force by law enforcement and the National Guard. Also, I think some of the Q folks are realizing that they've been duped a little bit, and are perhaps processing that.
Can we like just take a minute to appreciate, like, back on the 6th, right? Like, I think that we were like, oh man, it's going to go down, like inauguration day across, like we were hearing these reports that it was like, man, all 50 state capitals are under alert. Like this is going to be where the coup is going to happen or whatever. And like, everybody is kind of bracing for this thing. And then like 2 weeks before that happens, like Trump gets deplatformed and then just like goes into the White House and sits on his hands for 2 weeks, and then like leaves exactly when he's supposed to leave to like basically no fanfare, and then nothing happens on inauguration. Like what he like wildly, I don't know what the word is, like flaccid way for this administration to end. Like it was just such a nothing burger. That's a word, right? For it.
Wildly flaccid. It was quite the denouement of the Trump story. Yeah, so nothing happened, and there were more forces in D.C. that day than there are, I believe, U.S. forces abroad in any particular country right now. But here in Sacramento, anti-fascists did block up just in case the fascists would be out, and they did march around a bit. They did not do much of anything beyond their marching and showing cops that they don't appreciate them. I think there was one, they knocked down a fence at District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert's offices. Anne-Marie Schubert, again, is our district attorney who has never met a killer cop she didn't let go.
And like, as a result, is so beloved by her community that she has to keep a fence erected around her office at all times so that her windows don't get broken out, because they will if they don't keep a fence erected.
Well, keep in mind, this is somebody who's so jumpy that when she saw a Dr. Flojan Kofer, celebrated epidemiologist and public advocate, in a coffee shop, she ran out of the coffee shop.
Yes. Yeah. She was meeting someone that I know there as well. And I was just in the coffee shop and they walked into me, and like the other person was already there and we were talking. And then she went up to talk to her and she was like, we've got to get out of here.
Flo is very scary.
Came back afterwards, it was like she was so scared. I think that's hilarious.
So that's Anne-Marie Schubert. Anyway, they knocked over her little fence. That was about all that happened. And these folks end up going home. And after all is said and done, these 3 young women who are just driving, they're not doing anything wrong, ended up getting not just pulled over by Sac PD, and I spoke with a couple of them and heard their story. Basically, Sac PD was telling reporters, and as this was going down, well, first of all, I'll say they pulled them over. Multiple cars were behind this car, multiple cop cars. It's 3 young women in this car, totally unarmed, hadn't done anything wrong. These cops are holding guns pointed at their heads, demanding that they throw their car keys out and that the driver back up to them with her arms in the air. And they did nothing wrong. Again, they had no reason to pull them over. What they claimed to them was that somebody had given them a tip that there were explosives in the vehicle. There were not. They found nothing. So as they're doing this, Chief Hahn, tell me if I'm right, but what I'm hearing is that you were texting all of city council, everyone over there, saying that, oh, we've got some folks with explosives in their vehicle. And tell me if I'm wrong here. Because after all was said and done, they didn't find anything in that vehicle. They let them all go. By the way, they confiscated their own property. They confiscated their phones, which, again, this is fascist behavior by Chief Daniel Hahn's Sacramento PD.
Well, this, like, to add a little context to this, this is when the counter protest crowd is dispersing, right? So the cops the cops are doing what they do, which is wait for people to leave in small groups and then jump in and nab people, right? And this
target
is just,
them,
right? So this is just people leaving a scene peacefully and being retaliated against by cops.
Where they did nothing wrong.
Where they did nothing wrong. And, like, honestly, you know, I don't know, man. like to go back to, like, Hahn's video and, like, you know, other discussions that, like, Blue Lives people will have. It's like, you know, oh, well, you don't know how hard it is to be a cop. And, you know, like, you don't know what it's like to have the guns pointed at you and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I've seen a lot of videos of guns being pointed at other people in this town. And it's usually the cops doing the pointing. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And
this
I
is
guess
a trend.
Yes.
This is absolutely a trend. So, you know, in my day job as an attorney, I'm sitting down. What is your biggest priority when it comes to Sacramento police? What are you afraid of? And it is folks who are scared of their level of surveillance. They're being tracked. They go downtown and police who they've never met before are calling their names, right? There are multiple people who have had their phones taken, and you can hear from these folks are reporting that they can hear cops talking to each other saying, get their communications, look at their communications.
Yeah.
And these are people who they can't even keep in custody because there's not enough to hold them even in custody. But they're doing all these different tactics. That is a form of political repression, and is also, how do I make sure to stay out of the libel territory for y'all?
No, you're fine. It's actually
it's
very
it's
well.
Also, it gets just about as close to silencing your right to free speech as possible, because you're intimidating people just by being present in public spaces, exercising your free speech. You will be targeted, searched, harassed by the police. That's the message they're delivering to people, and people are hearing it. People are scared.
This is brown shirt behavior. Sorry, and I'm sorry for belaboring this, but, like, I don't know how many times this needs to be said. This is not okay. This is oppressive to a very alarming degree. Can I also underline another theme that I think Flo brought up earlier? Cops are liars. Cops lie, you know? When they said that Stephon Clark had a toolbar, whatever the fuck that is, you know, so they felt like they could kill him.
When they said that people were keying cars in East Sacramento, when they've said, I mean, like, there are so many false narratives that they put forward. Absolutely, Dave, go ahead.
And then, you know, when they shot a down and out man's dog last year as he was sitting down outside Safeway, and lied and claimed that it was being, you know, overtly aggressive. They lie. They lie. They lie.
That man, to your point, Dave, is now suing the city of Sacramento over that incident, and will, I think, is fairly likely to win a large sum of money that the taxpayers will pay for, because that money does not come out of the police budget. It comes out of different places of the city budget, and there's not a lot of money that doesn't go into the police budget to go around.
This is, and again,
I forgot something.
Go ahead.
During the presentation of the deputy chief, she reported that there was a 40% decrease in patrolling from Sacramento PD because of what they were doing in downtown. Now, isn't that a beautiful number? A 40% decrease of people being approached for no reason by the police. And I guarantee you there was no increase in crime.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that's a good way to demo what it looks like if we just cut 40% of the of police from being around here. And as someone who lives and operates in downtown Sacramento, didn't feel any less safe. I'll testify to that.
Yeah, I want to thank every single anti-racist demonstrator that goes out there, because they claim that 1/3 of their police force has to go out to these things. Keep making them do this so they don't fucking harass normal Sacramentans. Cops are liars. Back to that original point.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to drive home again that even if Chief Hahn is presenting himself in this very fine way, and again, dude, I don't know if I can keep doing acro yoga with you if you keep lying, man. He continues to lie, not just to reporters, but also to our city council. So at what point, what we do in journalism is when someone lies to us, they lose our trust. And so we have to double and triple check what they're saying when they give us a tip. You at city council should be practicing the exact same behavior. They are lying. They regularly lie. And I think moving on is just very important that we hold them accountable in that regard.
I think Hahn is able to get away with it more easily because the person that he's always being compared to is other police leadership in this town, which is Jones, who's like this fucking pudgy trailer park ham hock, who's like,
love when he's
visibly racist. And so if you compare Chief Hahn to this guy, then he comes out looking like this like progressive warrior for the people or whatever, when he's just as bad. It's just like the package is less obvious than it is with the county. Yeah. I mean, Dave, we live in a world full of false narratives and people who will lie to our faces and take information and disseminate it in ways that are deceptive and dishonest. How am I, just the Joe Blow citizen of Sacramento, how am I supposed to be able to like parse all of these falsehoods and dishonesty to be able to get to the truth of the matter? Because it sounds like the cops are in the habit of going into city council meetings that are on record and serving up whack takes. And I wish there was like some place that people could go where those takes could be offset by perfect takes. So I guess this is just a roundabout way of me asking you, does such a place exist? Where can I go to find the non-whack takes and find a place that curates this information for me in a way that is delicious and yet also healthy?
That's a really wonderful question, and I'm glad that you came to me with it because
you were the first guy I thought of. Man.
Yeah, it means a lot. There is such a place. And that place with delicious, delectable, perfect takes is called voicesrivercity.com. Tiffany, stop laughing.
I'm just so entertained.
At voicesrivercity.com, we started over 3.5 years ago now. We did news and arts coverage. Just perfect takes abound back then. We have the Sac Follows the Money project, which tells you who the bastards who are paying the bastards in our political office are. And it really paints a direct line to why our politicians act the way they do. We currently our focus is this podcast, which also appears on the radio. We'll get to that in a second. Perfect takes all around. And there are moments when our perfect takes are not that perfect. And unlike, or actually perhaps like our city council, we are subject to our listeners and our supporters. And when we might be imperfect, you reach out to us and we respond to that. And that is something we're very proud of. So, check out voicesrivercity.com. There is another place with not just perfect takes, also perfect tunes. That is 103.1 KUTZ FM Cuts. Now, Cuts runs us. Usually they run our Tuesday episode, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. on your way from and to work. We are doing this one special after work Friday. We'll tell you what time later because this is a longer episode. And then in the morning on Saturday, we're looking at 10 a.m. And we're very proud of it. We think that Cuts is just doing some amazing work. If you go to their website, you can donate to their work that they're doing. They are a nonprofit, and they are really trying to do freeform radio that lets community voices come in and show the cool art, the cool music, all the things that they're doing. And they've done a really good job at keeping going during this pandemic. So thank you to KUTZ for all of that. We are on social media.
Well, hang on, Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we get to that, so we're getting this episode on a Friday, which feels like a special occasion, but I loved it so much. Is there a way for me to get an episode of Voices River City every Friday instead of just once in a while? And if I wanted to hear 2 great episodes a week, how would I go about doing that?
That's a fantastic question. And I'm glad you asked it once more. Normally, our Friday episodes are behind the Patreon paywall. Basically, if you want double the episodes in your month, if you want not 4 episodes, but 8 or 9 episodes in a given month,
this must easily cost $100, $200, even $1,000.
You will be
this
astounded
amount of content.
You'll be astounded to hear and learn that it doesn't. It only costs you $5 a month. That is a beer at the bar you're not going to. That's a hot chocolate at Naked Lounge, which you're also not going to because the owner's weird. This is something. Was that a bad? Did I do a bad? This is something that really I think is worthwhile. We're trying to
you better call Chief Hahn, because honestly, at these prices, this feels like grand larceny.
It's a steal. It is.
OMG.
It is a classic steal.
Not tonight.
Now.
I'm not doing this with you all.
We bring it to a different level every episode.
I wasn't ready. I was not ready.
Now, I mean, it might be. I'll reach out to him. He owes me. He borrowed my yoga brick, so I gotta reach out anyway. So
shit.
You can help support us on Patreon there. We have a store, voicesrivercity.com/shop, where you can get t-shirts, you can get coffee mugs, you can get stickers, you can get White Claw koozies.
Yeah, you can.
It's incredible. We have literally everything you would want. Those are literally the only things I want. So
that's all the things I own.
Yeah. And so check that out. But all of this is to say, we're here because we love this town, we love California, and it's really important to us to discuss these issues. And We are on social, finally. Voices River City on Facebook, at Voices River City on Twitter and Instagram. We are on YouTube if you want to look at our pretty little faces. We are actually all very pretty people. Voices River City there. And finally, each of us personally are on Twitter. I am at YunoKempa, YUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
I'm Shan and D. Stevens.
And you can find me at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
And Tiffany, where could we find you?
You can find me on all socials at TIFANEI, my first name, Tiffany.
Yay! Shout out to us with our first names.
Extremely jealous.
As you should be.
I couldn't get David for some reason.
Yeah, no. I had to sync to macabre guillotine imagery in order to get mine.
I did get the Facebook Kempa slash. That I was proud of that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you once again for listening to the show. Thank you to our patrons who helped to support us. To each and every one of you listening to this via podcast, YouTube, or radio, we want you to know that we love you and we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
Especially
Sorry, Mickey.
You, Hahn.